Okay, so hello, everybody. This is the November block of the month. We are doing Christmas blocks. In one packet, there's a tree and a package, a gift package. And in the other one, there is a star and a bell. So I tried to make the packets evened up because the bell takes a little bit longer, but the star doesn't. And the gift doesn't take very long, but the tree does. So first thing you have to do is trim out your pieces so that when you're done, you have something that looks like the different pieces on your paper. Here, 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 and here.
So we want to use our paper scissors, correct?
Yes, because we don't want to get our good scissors all gooped up. When you trim these, you will get residue on your scissors, but if you take nail polish remover or alcohol, it'll take and clean those off.
Or Goo Gone.
Or Goo Gone, but not too many people have Goo Gone.
Oh, so that's part of my sewing. Yeah. I have a question about the
cutting. Okay.
On the bell, there's like a little loop, and we need to cut out the center of that.
Yes, we do. And where the two lines are drawn, just make do, because those are going to be underneath something else.
Okay.
So if they're a little bit weird looking when after you cut them out, it's not that big a deal. It's going to be covered up by something. So what I did to prep these was I figured out which fabrics I wanted to do for each of the patterns. And then I took Steam a Seam 2 light and I put a whole sheet of Steam a Seam 2. I measured how long from one edge to one edge, either this way or this way. And I cut a strip of Steam a Seam light, whatever I decided, after I played with it, laying them down to see how many I could get out of it. I think the trees I did this way, and I turned them so that they would kind of run next to each other.
So you had Steam a Seam light that you had purchased by the yard?
I had by the yard. I also have by the page.
Okay.
And when you purchase it by the page, it's going to be a little bit shorter, but you still should do the same process so that you have your leftovers for some of the other pieces of the patterns. So once you cut the Steam a Seam light in the width size that you're going to be using to cut out, to measure, to put the patterns on, then you go to your ironing table, and so either you use wax paper or you use Teflon sheet. I use a Teflon sheet because you can clean it off and reuse it over and over again. They're about $10 per sheet, and you only have to buy one, and it lasts for almost ever. I've had this one for, oh, the coodles of years, and you can clean it off with soap and water. So I would take this and put it down, and then take my fabric, wrong side up, put the Steam a Seam on the fabric, and using steam. Well, that's the wrong direction. Sally, how do you do it? Do you iron it with the first time with the fabric facing up?
With the paper piece.
Okay, so I wouldn't use the steam on this side, correct?
Probably not.
Okay, so for the first iron, I would turn my steam off, And then using the setting for the fabric that you're using, which this is cotton, so I used top setting cotton. I put it down and I count to 5, and then I move it and I put it down and count to 5 until I get all of them steamed or all of them ironed onto the fabric on this side. Then I'll take on this side and I'll go and I'll do the same thing, but only maybe count to 3 and keep going. So I wouldn't use the steam on this portion of it.
Side, no.
Right. But I wouldn't even use the steam on this portion of it. I wouldn't use the steam until I got to where I'm putting it on the backing.
Yes.
Okay.
And it's important to press on both sides when you're attaching the steam to the piece before you cut the piece out.
Right. And let me show you.
It'll wrinkle a little bit if you don't, if you only press on the paper side. So
I have this because I made a boo-boo. This one is upside down. So if I cut it out with the fabric, I'm going to have the wrong side up. So I had to redo it. But this is the piece that I cut to a certain size. And then I took my templates. So I had these all cut out as to templates. Actually, this is the bell. And I took this template and I made all of the ones I was making. I had to make 10. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I drew 10 of these. And then I went and I did the next one and drew them out until I got my paper all filled up, because all of this is the same color. Then, like I said, I took and I had my fabric laying down, and it has 2 pieces of like wax paper type paper on it and it's sandwiched in between them. So once you get all of your pieces drawn for the same fabric, this fabric and this fabric is exactly the same, then you can peel the side that doesn't have anything written on it off. And I don't know if you can see the texture. See the glossy texture? And see how it sticks to my finger a little bit? That way I know I've got the webbing on the correct side. And I'd peel this totally off and I'd put it down on my fabric and smooth it out. Then I'll come with my iron and do, like I said, iron, count to 7, iron, count to 7, each area. After you do that, you'll have the fabric on one side and the paper piece or the paper on the other side. Once you get to that point, and yes, Sally's right. After you iron it on this side, turn it over and do the same on this side, just a little bit shorter ironing seconds. You know, count 3 or 4, don't count 7.
It's just to flatten it.
Yeah, it's kind of to attach it a little bit more to the fabric, but not totally attach it.
Yes.
And take all of the wrinkles out of it. So after you get the fabric on one side, like this piece, you go in and I took and rough cut these, because if I sat and tried to trim them all out on my own, it would have taken me 3 times as long. And I thought you guys wouldn't mind doing a little bit of work. Then have to go back and trim these out. And when I'm trimming them, I'm using, these are school style scissors, not my good scissors. And since the pencil mark was to the outside of the pattern, I'm trying to cut just to the inside of the pencil line. All right. And I should have had these done before I got home today, but I got home at 5 o'clock or later. So once you get them all cut out, what you're going to do is take your backing material, and I'm going to show you with the present. So here's the paper.
One more thing.
Yeah.
One of the reasons why when you're doing the pressing, that you need your Teflon sheet underneath and something on top. I use an old pillowcase. It's just to keep the stick, not only to keep the sticky off your iron and off your ironing board, but it's also because those pencil lines will get on your iron and create a problem.
I didn't think about that.
So, yeah, even if you use pen, it does that. So I know I have pencil lines, ghost pencil lines from my unicorn right now in my pressing thing.
So that's a good idea to use a pressing sheet on top and on bottom. The reason I use the Teflon is because if you accidentally get this webbing, say I have this piece and I don't notice that there's webbing on it, and I put my iron on it, it's going to stick. And then you got to clean your iron. So my other tip is, if you have pieces that are like this big with webbing stuff on them, throw them away. Don't keep them. They're not worth keeping to have an accident. In your packets, you got 1, 2 different patterns. If you got the gift, you got the tree. If you got the bell, you got the star. The gift and the star are very easy to do. What I start out by doing is I want to center my gift onto my backing. So the first thing I do, and you can take and measure this if you want to, but I find the easiest way is take the paper and fold it on itself, and you should be able to see the bottom black mark. I did this a dozen times and now I can't see the bottom black mark. Oh, let's do it this way where you're folding it towards itself. Yeah, there you go. So I'm taking the outer box, this outer box right here, and folding it on itself halfway. And giving it a good crease. And then I'm doing it in the other direction too. So now I know where my center point is on my pattern. And if you have a hard time seeing it, you can always take and use your pencil. But you can always take and put a line, a light line over top of that.
Okay, on the present, is it going to go on tall side or wide side?
Okay, so this is a square.
I know, but the present is a rectangle. At least
Yeah.
mine is a
Okay, so
rectangle. And the
from
ribbon seems
here, from here to here is bigger than here to here.
Okay,
So-
but then my ribbon is too long. My straight piece of ribbon is too long to go that way unless it's supposed to have a knot going up.
Well, then let's
See?
just do it. Let's
The
just do
other
it
way?
the other way. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
So
Yep.
once you get, I didn't even think about that. So sorry. I put these all together and I do them and I just automatically do certain things. So to find the center of your piece of material, fold it over, give it a good crease. And then fold it the other way and give it a good crease. Now you can kind of see, you know what, thinking about that.
It's gonna have to go down a little bit because
Yeah,
the bow's gonna.
why don't we just, I don't know that I used the template for the ribbon. I probably just measured and did it that way. So instead, for those of you who have the gift, put the ribbon sideways like that,
And cut it.
draw a line.
Okay.
Make sure you have just a little bit of overhang, just a little bit,
Okay.
and draw your line and trim it.
Okay.
And if other people do it the other way, it's all right. We'll just have some tall presents and some wide presents. But for this demo, it's good to know. Because then what you can do is take this piece of the present and fold it over the long way. Give it a little crease on the steam seam paper. And then you know exactly where it's going to go because it matches up with the line that you creased into your backing. Now, top to bottom, it's going to be a little bit different. And these don't have to be perfectly exact right. As long as we've got 1/4 of an inch and just a little bit of extra area over here on this end and the same thing on this end, it's going to look fine. So I'm guessing there's about the center line doesn't go to the center over here, but I'm going to make it so I know that I'm not in the center. So I feel like it's about 1/4 of an inch below the center line.
And you can always place your bow on top and sort of look at it. Because
No, you can't.
why not?
Because I gave you more than enough
I didn't get a
area.
gift, so,
So when you look at the bow,
okay, okay,
I gave you some extra down here to place underneath the gift.
okay.
Oh, okay.
That way we didn't have to stitch this part down over here. It's going to be under there and get stitched when the present gets stitched.
Okay. That makes
So,
sense.
yeah, I did that in a couple little places. On the bell, I did that with the clanger. And those are really the two main places that I did that with.
But you can still put it there
Yeah.
and just sort of eyeball it.
So I would go through and if you look at your ribbon, it's going to be a little bit, I don't know why it's a little bit off, but the center in the picture is a little bit off. Let's just make it the center. Let's just make it the center. I'm just, go with the flow. When you take your pieces off and you take the steam seam paper off, you're going to feel it's sticky on that side still too. And that's a good thing because then you can take it up, put it down, take it up, put it down. And I'm going to kind of gauge here and here to be the same amount of space. So I'm going to put it down And then I'm going to take my present. I'm going to take that off, and I'm going to try and center it good amount. And I
And-
feel like this needs to go up a little bit.
And from bad experience, do not bring an iron anywhere near it now until you're sure it's exactly where you want it to be.
And if you're a little bit fastidious like I am, you can always take your measure. There's 3/4 there. Oh, look, 3/4 there. I didn't do too bad. And you could always say, okay, well, I want to make sure the present's straight. Oop, I think I'll take it up and put it back down and make it straighter. And that looks pretty good. Looks like a present.
Okay, are we gonna all do the stitching, the actual applique with the same color? I just need to find the right color thread.
I'm going to let you choose what you want to do it with.
Okay.
I have, let me pull out what I did over here. I chose to use clear thread.
Uh-huh.
So you can't even see except for the stitching holes on the present.
Yeah. Okay.
And when I did the bells, I don't know, I can't see better with the light or without the light. I used a cream color thread all around this part, these colors.
Mm.
And I used a gold color thread around the clanger and the little dangly thing up here.
Hmm.
And then I used a red thread around the red. But if you want to do all the same color, feel free. It's not going to
Okay.
bother me. And here's what the tree looks like. So I went a little crazy with it and did green with the green and gold with the star and tan, and then a different gold thread around here. And this was a real thick thread and I didn't like it, so I stopped using it. And a copper color thread over there. So I played with these threads I never play with in the past. So I decided I wanted to play with them in this project. And everybody doing them different is going to make it really unique.
Okay.
So here's the star. I just used the cream color all the way around the star. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So let me take and get this present on the backing so I can show you the ironing. And I'm going to let some extra of my, no, I'm not going to, I want to make those go down. So it's on there, that, see, it's not coming off, it sticks to it. The last piece is the ribbon on the bottom. And with the ribbon, I'm going to let it hang over just a little bit so it seems like it's going around the present box. All right, and then we're going to go over to the ironing board. Got my Teflon sheet. And I've turned my steam on. And it's hard to figure out. I did read the
Did you say
instructions.
steam on or off, Lynn?
Steam on. It's hard to figure out how long to hold this thing together. But it does say in the instructions, and I read this. Sally, did you reread them to double check me?
Yes, I agree.
So the instructions say you cannot overdo this. And I would suggest you do it more than less. Because if you don't, then the steam seam stays sticky. And when whoever's quilting it quilts it, their needle will stick more. So I'd steam this to as much as you can think about. So and hold it there for a good while. I'm going to count to 15. Okay, then I'm going to do the area I did not do. Keep your fingers away. And give it a second to cool. And then I'm going to trust it not to get sticky on my thing and do it from the other side for half the amount of time.
Lynn, I use a goddess sheet, which is thermal, and it's Teflon coated fiberglass.
Oh, so does it let the steam go through?
It well, not really, but it's very, very durable. Maybe Teflon by itself is too, but it's especially for doing applique with steam seam kind of stuff.
Oh, cool.
Anyway,
I may
they
have to
probably
invest in that.
sell it at your favorite shop. But it has a little curve so that you know which side should be up, and it's good size. It's about 18 by 12, something like that.
Okay. All right, so once you get it steamed on, and you're going to come back and do a decorative stitch on it. I almost always go to blanket stitch, but if you want to use a different one, you can. And I don't know. Oh, and I got that on there crooked.
The nice thing about the blanket stitch is you're sewing it puts a stitch along the edge, and that helps keep the edge from being really uber raw.
I'm thinking I'm going to use this goldy yellow color because it kind of blends in with everything. And I'm just going to use the cream on the back. If you had a dark thread, you'd want to use a dark thread on the back, or a light thread, you do the other. And not everybody has a blanket stitch on their machine. So pick something that you like that might go with this, or just do a general stitching.
I like a zigzag stitch. because it does the same thing. It holds the edge down a lot more.
And here's one little tip. I used an open foot. With a very wide area there so that I can actually see what I'm doing. It's much, I actually started with a walking foot playing with it. Then I switched to my regular foot to play with it and thought, I can't see anything. I'm gonna get an open foot. So does anybody else use an open foot like that?
Yes,
Okay. Now,
I've got one of those C-shaped feet that I use sometimes.
a V-shaped feet,
No, it's C,
C-shaped.
but I think that's what I use when I'm actually using it to quilt on top.
And
So
you have,
I don't know if that would work for this.
what's your brand name machine?
It's a Bernina.
Okay, so that's with the Bernina. With my Janome, this clear open foot came, and I don't really have too many other feet that came specifically with the Janome like that. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to start at a place where then I'm going to stop, and I might even on this present start with this V is right here so that I can keep going with a continuous stitch. So I'm going to start with the stitch facing toward the present. So first, let's play with our machine and see what it looks like before we even stitch on our project. So I just do real quick and see what it looks like. And with mine, I can tell it I want to stop at a certain spot by hitting the dot.
Can you tell us what stitch length and width?
Well, that's what I'm coming to right here, Pat. See if you like that. To me, the teeth are too long, so I need to change that. So I'm going to shorten that teeth length right there. And I think originally I start out here at 3.5 and 2.5. And if I remember correct, when I was working with it, I went down to 2 for both of those. So both of my stitch goes to 2.0. And then I'm going to look at it again and see if that's really what I did like. And I might even make the length of the stitch a little longer. As far as, let's see what this does.
on small things, you might want to have it smaller like that. But on larger areas, I like to use 3 for the stitch length.
Okay, so I played with mine. You can see that I can look at it and say, well, what do I like? Well, I kind of like that front part the way it is. And so that was at 2 and 2 for me. And whenever I start out a project so that the thread doesn't get all jumbled up in the back, because I like to knot the thread on the back just to make sure that it's going to stay in the back. So I take a large amount of beginning thread out and keep it in front of me. So I've got the thread, see if you can see it. I've got the thread all the way out like this and I'm holding it in my hand at the front of my machine. And then figure the point you want to start at. And I want to gonna start right where that bow is in the center. And I'm getting it so that I know I'm starting where I want to start, putting my needle down. Whether you do it with your knob or your needle up, needle down, and bring it back up and pull the bottom thread out. So now I have the bottom thread and the top thread on the top. Put it behind you, your foot. Put your needle back down again and start sewing. And I like to sew a little slower when I'm doing decorative work like this. That way I can control it better. And it's making its knot. And then I'm getting it going. And I'm keeping the, let me get my example. I'm keeping this piece where this stitching, you can't see that. These stitches at the top here, not the teeth, I'm keeping that right along the edge of the packaging. And the teeth are going onto the packaging. And get you closer so you can see when I get to a corner. Because the corners and where you're changing direction, you want to be working on those. So let me get there. Okay, when you're approaching the corner, go slow as you can. So I'm right on the corner's edge where I'm gonna, and my needle just happened to go in a perfect spot for being able to turn. I'm gonna let it make that stitch and then let it make the forward stitch, the backward stitch, and then one more forward stitch. Now I'm right on the corner or really close to the corner of the present. So with my needle down, I'm going to turn it. And I'm going to aim it toward the middle of the package before I actually turn it to go to the next step. Can you see that? Let's see. So you can see I'm like aiming way over here for my last stitch, which is going to go into the present. And then back out of the present. Now I'm going to turn it. And I'm going to let it do its thing to try and get back and track on the next one. And then I'm going to keep going.
We can only see your hand. The camera moved.
And when I come back, I'm going to use a darker thread so you can see the thread better. Here we're at the corner again. This corner ended up being exactly where I wanted it to be. And
Lynn, is this how we'll be doing the star when we get to the inside point?
yes, it's
Okay.
easier though on the inside point of the star because you have a little bit more wiggle room. These corners, when you get to the point of the star, you're going to be doing the points like this, and you're going to feel like there's way too much thread on the points of the stars, but just go with it and try and keep everything to the inside, because it will come out looking really, really straight and pointy. See, like this, see how it looks like
Yeah.
there's way too much thread there? But see how they look nice and pointy?
Yeah.
So just always keep that inside to the inside. This one's just a little bit less, but really it doesn't look that bad. So with the stars, that's what you're going to do. And after the fact, when you look at them, they look pretty good.
Yeah, it does. I was just worried about the inside.
So let me show you all three of these different ones.
And Lynn,
Yeah.
as my grandmother said, no one's going to see it from a galloping horse.
And they're gonna, when they're all together, nobody's gonna search out one or the other that looks different. I kind of did this one in a big rush and had a few little errors. Like I said, that this thread was really thick, but when you get to the points, you see that one doesn't look great, but when you look at it from a distance, it looks just fine.
Yeah.
So, and even the stars, I thought I was gonna have a hard time with them, but just make them a little rounder and then they look fine. So, I also need to give you guys a little pointers on how to do by hand, but first, before I go on to that, because I am actually not really prepared for that, I also included in your packet, hang on, come here. I included, here they are, the 4-patch. And it was just easier for me to go ahead and do 2 and 2 and cut them instead of cut. So I did half the sewing for you already on the 4-patch. And they're lined up. The way I want them to kind of look is the green and the red need to be opposite corners. If the black and the white don't end up in the same spots, don't worry about it. If it's all over the place, it's different. And it won't look odd if they're all different. Just as long as the green's in this corner and the red's in this corner, or vice versa, opposite of each other. The other thing is I attached them for this demo to show you. Don't attach them when you send it back to me, because some of them go in the front of the patch, some of them go in the back of the patch. If everybody attaches them, I'm going to have to undo them and redo them. So it'll be better for them to be separate. So I also need to show you, let me cut this and show you this work that we were just working on. The stitch is just to the outside of the present box. And then these little teeth are just hanging over the area. And keeping the stitch to the inside corner, you just go around the corners like that. I'm sorry I'm not as prepared as I should be for this demo.
You're doing fine.
I feel like I'm floundering. So let me get a piece of thread and try and show y'all how to do by hand. How many people are going to do by hand the blanket stitch? Anybody? Oh, I didn't get anybody. Is everybody awake?
Yes.
Doing it on the machine.
Ah, that's the way I would do it. I'm lazy. but I really want
Yeah,
to
and
get.
I had to
good
cut
at
out,
this.
I had to do all my pieces myself because I wasn't at the meeting and didn't get
Oh,
to get.
no. And I'm going
I
to tell you
know.
this. I'm going to put them all together, and all the ones that are left over, I thought it would be nice to make them into placemats and send them on to Modern Quilt Guild handed for their placemats. What do y'all think of
Okay.
that?
That sounds good.
Because
Very good.
in order to get one quilt out of these, I had to make, I had to make the pattern small enough that I could put it on PDF. So those of you who didn't make the meeting could get the pattern and print it off on your printers. But I had to have 20 of these small appliques to make one quilt. So I don't think we're going to get 20 extras. So placemats are the way to go.
Then I have a question for you.
Yeah.
You said you wanted the ribbon to look like it was going around the package. So does that mean that you stop the blanket stitch when you get to the quilt, to the ribbon?
Okay, so if I did it all the way around, and I didn't do it just for time's sake, I would keep going like, okay, come on, then get it in the picture. I would keep going all the way around this way. I'd skip over this and just keep going all the way around all these corners. Then when I get to here, I'd go up the ribbon and down the ribbon. Then I'd stop, and then I'd go over to here and go up the ribbon and down the ribbon. And then I'd stop and tie off. It's to try and make as much continuous as you can so that you don't have to stop and tie off so much. But then I'd start here, go down there, tie off, and then start here and go back up here and tie off.
So you would go straight across the bottom initially?
Yes, all the way straight across.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Just to make a continuous line. When I used the clear thread with the packages, I actually went all the way around this one, came back over here. I double stitched over top of here because it was clear, you couldn't see it.
Yeah.
So I just kept going until I couldn't go anymore. It was like I didn't want to make it so bulky that it hurt.
Yeah. Okay.
So I'm looking for the green thread and it's on my machine. How smart am I today? And forgive me, but I'm trying to remember how to do the blanket stitch by hand as well.
The trick is the very first stitch. Getting it right by hand.
Do you start on the corner, right? And you go in.
You can. I usually don't, but I probably do my own thing and don't follow directions well. So
Andrea does a lot of blanket stitch by hand. She likes to sit in front of the TV and work on them and do it that way, which is really a good thing to do. Pat, you might like that if you're not going to do it by machine. And so the other tips I would say is if you're going to do it by machine, do it with a lighter color, because then it hides your mistakes a whole lot more than a dark color would. Look at right here. The dark color I have, you can see that a whole lot clearer than you can this. So it's going to come out and really show up. Unless you're like doing red on red, then that's perfect. All right, let me do one stitch before I show y'all. You make your knot in the end of your thread. And I'm not going to, well, I guess I can. You do it, your first stitch up beside your present. Then you make your second stitch. Down, and you go up where you want the tooth to come up. No, that doesn't look right. Down. I did it just a minute ago. No, that's not the right way, y'all. I think you go down into the, and then come back out this way and wrap this around this way like this. Yeah, there we go. And you're kind of making a little L right there.
You're sort of off the edge of the camera.
All right, I'm trying to get back on.
There you are.
Okay, so where I'm taking my next stitch is where I want the next tooth to go up. And you're also putting the point up where the tooth is supposed to come out right there. Then you pull your thread, you put your thread around. I know you put your thread around your needle. And when you pull tight, it drags it over like that. I'm going to do it one more time so that I can do it, show it to you better. So you're putting your needle in just below the present. You're coming up where the tooth you want to see the tooth come out. You're wrapping your thread around the top of the needle. Around the top of the needle like that. And then you're pulling your needle the rest of the way through. And when you pull it down toward you, it makes a blanket stitch.
On the bell, if,
Uh-huh.
because I got a bell, are you butting the two pieces of the bottom of the bell and you know, the three pieces? Are you butting them together and then doing the, yeah. So you left a little bit of space in between.
Right. When
Background.
you look at your papers.
Yeah.
That's the
Yeah, it's
present.
leaving a little bit.
When you look at your paper and you look at the top corner,
Yeah.
that's your example of what it's supposed to look like.
Okay.
This is where it's all supposed to be in the right spot. That's why when you make the cross, then you can look at your cross on your fabric and kind of match it up. One of the parts right, this part right here, if you look at the cross line in the center, this piece hangs over just a little bit below the cross right there. And this part right here, if you fold it in half, it's almost right there in that center where it matches the center point.
Okay.
And note that this ribbon is underneath this ribbon. This ribbon is underneath these ribbons. And this bow right here, this knot goes over top this whole center piece right here.
Okay.
So it's going to cover up the ends of this bow and these two pieces here. Well, this piece here.
Okay.
Let me give you a close-up of mine.
Okay.
See how this is underneath all of this. This is underneath over here. And this whole little center part catches all 4 of these. Also, this part right here is underneath that. So layering wise.
Okay.
And Pat, the chime part right here, it has a little extra piece. So you can slide it underneath before you iron it down.
Okay.
So that's a little extra big. You only want it to show just this much. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. So that takes care of the bell. The other ones, that's the present. That's the bell. Oh, they're over here. The star is really straightforward. The one thing you have to remember with the star is that you have a really long piece here. So if you want to get the center of the star, you have to match. Hang on. You have to match this point to this point to get this center. So when you match it to the center that you make on the backing, it does get into the center of the quilt, of the block, okay?
Okay.
That'll make it much easier to match it to the center. When you take this point, you fold it over to here and you crease the paper that's behind it. And then your center point this way is straight this way, because this point and this point are right in the center mark here and here.
Yeah, I see.
All right. And then the Christmas tree. Christmas tree was the one that was a little bit more tricky. And I just used the I used this picture right here to kind of look at it and say, well, it's not totally even all the way around here at the backing. It's a little fatter in some places than others. So when I tried to put this in here, I tried to go by this guide to give me a little bit how this is kind of even all the way around here. And if you draw a imaginary line, it kind of matches with these. Same thing here. If you draw an imaginary line, it kind of matches with this one. So that will help you with this. But even if you don't get them straight on, as long as there's a little bit of a area around these and a little bit in between, it'll look good. Okay. And the other thing with tree is it's pretty close. I have 1/4 of an inch here and a little bit more on here. So maybe even take your ruler and with a chalk or with something you can erase, draw your lines so you know exactly where the 1/4 inch is, because that's what's going to be sewn. See, on this one, I'm going to come right to the trunk, and I should have had it a little bit higher. Maybe that's another tip for these. Make sure you know where your 1/4 inch is. Draw it out with your chalk so that you don't accidentally go over top of it. All right. Anybody else have any questions? These are good questions. It's helping me teach. I don't know what that noise is.
Not
Oh,
me.
it's me. I'm sorry.
So I think I've covered all that I'm going to cover. If you want to just do straight stitching on it, you can do that too. I'll do a little straight stitching and show you what it looks like.
Thank you, Lynn. It was good.
You're welcome. Let me,
I'm gonna leave and go eat dinner.
okay. See you, Pat.
Bye.
Yeah.
Bye,
Me too.
everybody.
Bye, Pat.
Bye.
So one clue when you're doing a straight stitch line is that use your foot.
Hi,
Uh-oh.
cutie.
There, I came back. I ran away. QT came to visit. So use your foot. I'm going to put this side of my foot right up against this side of the present and keep it there. That way you for sure have the equal distance with your straight stitch. And I'm still going to do the same thing I always do. I'm going to bring the bottom thread up through the top to the top, which I did that already automatically.
And you do want to be less than a 1/4 inch away from the edge. More like a 1/8 or a 1/16.
Right. This, putting my foot there, I've got about an 1/8 of an inch away from the edge. And remember to change the mode on your machine back to straight stitch. And even that's just a little bit chunky, the 1/8 of an inch. I'm going to do one side an 1/8 of an inch and see if I can get the other one even a little bit tighter. But if you get too tight, what you're going to do is you're going to fray the edge.
Yeah. The straight stitch tends to work best on little tiny pieces that you're adding.
I'm using this new stand. It's not as nice as the other one. So on the bottom, I was about an 1/8 of an inch away from it. That kind of looks chunky. So on the side, I got a 1/16 of an inch. That doesn't look bad at all. And Sally says she likes to do the zigzag stitch. Let's see what zigzag looks like. If I can find zigzag.
You probably use the same settings as you do with the but I call it a buttonhole stitch. It's not a buttonhole stitch.
Satin stitch is what you're trying to think of, isn't it?
Now, with the first stitch that you demonstrated to us, so you did that one
The
2 and 2.
Blanket stitch, 2/2.
Blanket stitch, yeah. If you did that 2 and 2, it's 2 and, setting it for a 2 zigzag, probably.
Let's see what that does, because that's what I'm going to do.
I'm guessing.
Oh, well, I think it needs to be closer.
Okay.
I'm using 2 and 0.6.
Oh, okay.
It's not quite a satin stitch. It's pretty close though.
you can get too obsessive about that. I did one time with a zigzag, and I ended up doing satin stitch, and then I ended up doing the whole thing satin stitch because, yeah,
So I did that over top of the straight stitch.
yeah.
Well, it doesn't look bad. I used to have a machine that couldn't do satin stitch very well, so I often stay away from it if I can. Because it just started making it stop, and then I'd have to fix it and move it along and stop and fix it and move along.
Yeah.
So, but you guys pick what you want to do. Whatever makes you happy. I want you to be happy during these time of year. Be happy, happy. All right, I'm going to stop recording. I think we've got everything we need to record.